Hi, everyone. Let's see, I'm trying to make sure that you can see all things and also that you're able to send me a question. There is a place, should be in the upper right-hand corner, where there is a chat box. And if you send a question into that, I should see it, and I'll either answer it right while I'm talking if we're right on topic, or by the time we're done at any rate. So just so that I could get an idea of how things are going here, can a couple of you just send me a chat to say you can hear everything and it's going fine? And I'll wait to see if anything shows up here. And the other thing I need to know is, can you see the slides? Right now there should be just one slide with the topic. I got a yes. Not sure if that's a yes on you can hear me and found the chat box. Can see the slide. Great. Okay. So welcome everybody. I appreciate us being able to get together and to talk about this. Sorry that it has to be under circumstances like this, but we have a situation that every one of us is involved in, and some of us to a greater degree than others. I need to start with some legal work here. Just see what I can do here. There. I need to talk a little bit about what we are doing here and what we're not doing here. What we're not going to be doing tonight is talking about how to cure the coronavirus, or even how to prevent the coronavirus. What we're really talking about is what can we do within ourselves to make ourselves as strong as we can, and to help not only ourselves, but to help all of our friends and relatives and neighbors and even the rest of the country and really the rest of the world. So it's kind of a, traditional medicine has the approach of trying to find cures for things, and natural medicine has the approach of trying to make us as healthy as we can, making our bodies function as well as we can, so we have less involvement with things that get going too far. So the coronavirus does seem to be more deadly. More people are dying from it percentage-wise than the regular flu, at least so far. But everything that we see now having to do with statistics and percentages, it's really very skewed. We really don't have accurate information at all. So we know a lot about what happened in 1918 because it's after the fact. But when things are happening, and especially in the situation that we're in right now, where so few people have been tested, we really don't know. We just know that this is something to contend with. So estimates are that it could be quite severe. But I think what we all need to keep in mind is that we really have a lot to say about how severe it's going to be, or whether it's even going to be severe. And so I want to just take a minute about that to say that you shouldn't at all feel like if this is all over and not too many people got infected and not too many people died from it, that all of this effort that we're all putting into this was a waste of time. It should be just the opposite. We should think that if that's what's going on, if we're able to do that, then we were able to be probably the most successful community, nation, country, whatever, all the effort that we're putting in, I can tell you, is every bit warranted and every bit worth the time that we put into it and the effort that we put into it. And for many of us, the cost that we're going to be putting into it. So far, what we can tell is that the coronavirus is more contagious than most types of flu. So far, we can tell that more people are affected by contact. So the average time that someone that's infected and how much effect they have on another person is more than what it would be with a regular flu. We're getting a lot of mixed messages, but so far that seems to be the case. And, as you know, though you may feel fine, that doesn't mean that you're not carrying it to another person. Anybody, any one of us that feels fine, could be in contact with another person, and they could be the ones that get sick, and we're not. And we'll probably never know if we did that, but I want everybody to know that we have a responsibility as a community to work together to make this be as least severe as it possibly can be, for it to be, and for it to be something that when it's all over, we can say, hey, that wasn't so bad. That would be a great outcome. So right now, just to kind of put things in perspective, the flu season, regular seasonal flu, starts around October. Around Halloween time is often used. As of February, we've had 34 million cases of the flu, 350,000 hospitalizations, 20,000 deaths due to the flu. So, and that's a normal season. That's what happens. A lot of those deaths are from people that have very weak immune systems, that have many other health problems, and usually it turns into pneumonia, and that's really what turns out to be the fatal blow. So the definition of a virus: a small infectious agent that replicates only inside the living cell of an organism. So that's an important thing that I wanted to get across as to how a virus affects us, what happens, and why is it that these little buggers can affect us so much. What happens is they have to find a way to get inside the cells of our body. So obviously different types of viruses have different strengths or abilities to get into different types of cells. So this one we know particularly can get into lung cells. Also the gut, and other types of virus might affect us in a different way. This one works that way. There's still a lot we don't know. We do know it's transmitted by contact. We do know that it's more contagious. We know that it's probably more serious. And an interesting thing that hasn't been talked about is that we do know that it is an enveloped virus. So there are some viruses that don't have a capsule around them, and others that do. The ones that have a capsule around them are called enveloped. And one of the tricks is when you have an enveloped virus, first of all, they're a little tougher to deal with. But if you can find something to break down the capsule, you can then break down the virus. So with these kinds of things in mind, understanding that it is human beings that spread this. It's not transmitted by a mosquito. It's not another animal. It's human beings. It's human to human contact. And that's why we're getting all of these directions. I know some of us on the call right now are local from Gaylord. Some are in other states, but here in our state, we have just recently been put on lockdown for a few weeks. And I know that's happening in other places too. And the whole reason for that is to stop or at least significantly diminish the person-to-person contact. A flu, a virus, has what's called a half-life. It's only going to live for a certain amount of time. And in that amount of time, if it doesn't find a host, that's us, we're the host. Sometimes you want to be a host for something, sometimes you don't. But we're the host, and so if it can't find a host in a certain amount of time, it will die. We really don't know exactly what that half-life is for this virus because we just don't know enough about it. But we're kind of taking, or the scientists are taking the idea that something like 2 weeks is probably a pretty good guess. So understand, you're it. We're it. Every one of us. And so we have the ability to spread it, or we have the ability to stop it from spreading. Most cases are asymptomatic, so most of the people that get COVID-19 will never know it. Or they might get something like a mild fever or mild cough or mild shortness of breath, and the kind of thing they've had before and they never went to the doctor for. But that doesn't mean that you're not a carrier. So just so that you know, the way, way, way more people will get this COVID-19 and never have to worry about how severe it is or that it being life-threatening. What we're doing right now as a community, as a global citizen, is we're doing things for many of us. I know many of the people that are on this webinar, for many of us, it isn't so much what's going to happen to us, but what we could do to another person. And so I just want to encourage you to keep that in mind as to how important that is. So we also know that this particular virus is not like anything else. There has not been a virus like this before. We know it will get worse before it gets better. We know there will most likely be a second wave. We don't know exactly when, but next fall is a likely time. And probably in the next year, year and a half, nearly every person on Earth will be exposed to this virus because it just travels around like any other virus, like we've had come through before. So going back to this virus not being like anything else, keep in mind, most of us, we have had the flu. We have had the flu more than once in our life, and probably different strains of the seasonal flu. Well, when that happens, what happens is our body makes antigens to that, and then we're in a stronger place the next time a flu bug comes around. So when you hear people say, I haven't had the flu in years, well, they may have had the flu. It's just that their immune system beat it off. So their immune system was successful, at winning that battle. This one is brand new. There hasn't been anything like it before. So we don't have any antigens for this. We are totally relying on our immune system to learn quickly and act quickly, take action to fight against this. There's nothing in reserves. There's nothing in the library. There's nothing that your immune system can call upon from the past to help you specifically with this one right now. I want to just talk a little bit philosophically. The father of modern pathology said, if I could live my life over again, I would devote it to proving that germs seek their natural habitat, diseased tissue, rather than being the cause of dead tissue. In other words, mosquitoes seek the stagnant water, but do not cause the pool to become stagnant. So this is the guy that is, he's considered the man that discovered the human cell. So he knows a lot about pathology. He's no longer with us, but he did. And what he's saying is that germs, viruses, bacteria, whatever kind of pathogens attack us, are not the cause of disease, but rather it's the condition of the tissue that is present when that pathogen comes in that allows for disease to take hold. So this is really getting to the core of how natural approaches to healthcare work, because what we're all about is making that tissue in our body, every cell in our body, as strong and as healthy as we possibly can, which makes it so less vulnerable to anything that comes by. So with a pandemic going across, with the numbers and things going up, I think the last count I saw, we were, I think, over 51,000 people in the United States that have been confirmed to have the COVID-19. Expect those numbers to go up significantly because we just aren't testing very many people yet. Here's how I see it. Our role is, first of all, reduce the number of people that need to be hospitalized. The real crisis is that right now in the medical profession, the doctors and the hospitals, clinics, how many beds, how many respirators, how many different types of equipment, they're already stretched. It's not like they're sitting around and half of a hospital is empty or something. So this is on top of what normally happens. This is on top of the people that might have a heart attack or the people that need surgery for various things, you know, whatever it is. This is piled on top of them, and it's significant. It's a lot. And the worry is that it could get to be a lot more. So the role in this type of thing with natural healthcare providers, and I'm going to say for every person, actually, this falls into place. The role is for us to do whatever we can to reduce the number of people that might need to be hospitalized for this condition. Second would be reduce the number of people that need medical attention at all, that just don't get this severe enough, which is the third one, reduce the number of people that become symptomatic. And then lastly, reduce the severity of symptoms for those that do contract the disease. So you can kind of work this backwards. Whatever we can do to reduce the severity, if you do get it, whatever we can do to reduce the number that even have symptoms at all, in other words, their immune system is so strong that they don't even get to where they even know it, or it's just pretty mild, you know, I might feel like I have a cold or something like that. That leads to reducing the number of people that need medical care, and that leads to reducing the number that need to be hospitalized. So we all play a role in this, and what we do for ourselves and what we do for our family will then affect all those around us or anybody we come in contact with. So what should you do? I know that there's a lot of different information out there with the news media. Should you follow the CDC guidelines? Should we be staying home? Should we not be gathering in groups? Should various businesses be closed? Absolutely. This is not something, from what I can tell, this is not something to fool around with. Sure, most people will not get severely ill, but you know, in 1918, when the Spanish flu came through, millions of people died. Millions of people that would not have died otherwise. And so, like I have said, and I'll continue to say, is what you do, particularly if you are quite healthy, may have little to do with how it will affect you, but a lot to do with how it will affect somebody else. Other things that you can do, and I don't think I need to go over the CDC guidelines, and those are readily available, and I'm sure that you've been hearing a lot of them, or it certainly is available online too. But something that isn't talked about: avoid eating sugar and things that quickly turn into sugar. And I know you hear this and you read about it, and if you're one of our patients, we talk to you about it. It has never been more important than now. And if you've ever been thinking, I should be doing better, this is a time that you should be doing better. One of the things that has now been proven that we know as a true fact: if you eat 50 grams of sugar, your immune system stops for 6 hours, which means 50 grams of sugar, and in those 6 hours, you're a sitting duck. Whatever comes by your way, you have very little to fight with. And unfortunately, with the kinds of foods in our supermarkets, it just doesn't take that much to get to 50 grams of sugar. Eating whole foods, especially organic vegetables. Take advantage of specific nutritional supplements known to support the immune system, and we'll be talking about that very specifically and in length here before too long. So it makes sense to do what you can to keep your immune system as strong as you can, to keep every cell in your body so that it isn't vulnerable to a bacteria or a virus that might come by that is just looking for a place to take hold. Here's some things that I just wanted to give you an idea. I know a lot of these things, particularly if those of you that have been kind of keeping up with what you should do, or your patients here, or just on your own, but you might not eat many of these things. But just look at a bottle of pop. These are just typical: Mountain Dew, Pepsi, almost 50 all by itself, just a bottle of pop. Yoplait yogurt, and that's not the only one. I just didn't want to make this an exhausting list, but getting a fruit flavored yogurt is about 30 grams of sugar. Some of these iced teas on the market are really high. And going for your favorite chai or latte is really high up there too. So pay attention. All of these kinds of things are on the labels. And even if you go to a restaurant, they have to be able to tell you, these kinds of things. And so really important. If you were ever thinking that I'm going to do this, I'm going to get sugar out of my diet, now's the time. This is a perfect time. So let's talk a little bit about the immune system itself. In a way, it's more like an immune alliance. If we talk about the cardiovascular system, we know we're talking about the heart and the blood vessels. If we talk about the digestive system, we know where that is. The immune system's just about everywhere. It's throughout our whole body. It's almost like we are an immune system because it's so intertwined with so many different things. Thymus gland is part of it. Spleen is part of it. The lymphatic tissue, long bones in our body, stomach and digestive system, all the intestinal flora, the liver, everything in our body is part of the immune system. So you can see how important it is to try to keep all the cells of your body healthy. It isn't just your thymus gland, which a lot of people are, worked with or, tried to strengthen. It's everywhere. So I'm going to take just a minute here to talk about, I'm going to start talking about some specific nutritional supplements. I personally, for over 40 years, have used a company called Standard Process. And I use that company because of the science that is behind what they do, as well as the quality of what they produce. The nutrient density, what's in their supplements, is so much denser in terms of the nutrient content that therapeutically I have not found anything that matches them. The founder of Standard Process was called Dr. Lee. He was a dentist, but a genius, way, way ahead of his time. So many things he talked about took another 20, 30, 40, 50. Some of them are still just now being proven to be true now. But he had such an intricate knowledge of how nutrients work in the body on a cellular level. So the immune triad, for some of you, this is going to be a little surprising. You're not surprised that complex C would be part of it, but you might be surprised that calcium lactate and calcium and cataplex F are part of the immune triad. So this is kind of like the foundation of our immune response in the body. We're going to just play a couple of minutes here so that you can hear Dr. Lee explain some of this himself. And I'm hoping you can hear it once we started here.
Because the fever is an indication of the need for vitamin C. When we have an invasion of microorganisms and the phagocytes fail to properly cope with it, nature raises the temperature to stimulate the phagocyte. To stimulate C deficiency. So that
I'm going to go back just here a little bit.
When we have an invasion of microorganisms.
Little technical difficulty here. Bear with me.
And the phagocytes fail to properly cope with it. Nature raises the temperature to stimulate the phagocyte. The phagocytes would need to stimulate the C deficiency. So that the best thing to bring down the temperature, wherever there's a temperature, is a little natural vitamin C. Now, there's another reason for temperatures, which must be kept in mind at the same time. In children who are deficient in calcium, which the bones are being formed and maybe robbing the body fluids of almost all of the calcium, you can have some spontaneous high temperatures. Let's see, if you were to run a temperature, you'd find that it'd be way it would stay down or go on. And at times it might be it can get into a critical condition. Many youngsters have been put into the hospital for observation with the effort to find a bad appendix or something or other that would cause these temperature rises when it's nothing more than calcium deficiency. Now, that never occurs where the youngster gets hard water. Normally we get our calcium in the form of bicarbonate, which is the kind that is required to stimulate phagocytic action from hard water. We cannot get any calcium in that bicarbonate form out of bone meal or bone extracts or dicalcium phosphate, because dicalcium phosphate will not break down to yield carbon. It's too tight a chemical union. Carbonates will go into phosphates in the presence of phosphorus or other phosphates, but they won't go back again. So wherever you have temperatures, you must consider vitamin C and calcium and its bicarbonate or lactate or malate or vegetable acid combination. These vegetable acids like the lactate and malate, like calcium malate in apples and maple syrup, the vegetable acid is burned off and releases calcium to form calcium bicarbonate in the blood. So vitamin C and calcium bicarbonate are the partners which protect us from all influences of infection, virus or bacterial that we have in place. I don't believe it would be possible to have polio without a deficiency of calcium. Polio comes on when the victim is out in the sun, is overexposed to sunlight, maybe in bathing, and muscular exercise in excess exhausts the calcium reserves, and extra vitamin D produced by that sun pulls all the calcium out of the tissues back into the blood, and you have the same set for polio attack, mainly because of the tissue fluid deficiency of calcium and probably of the other protective items. As soon as we have a box and something is over with and they have to put back on their clothes, there's no more polio danger. Sure, we know polio is caused by a virus, but the virus cannot bother us unless we have a calcium deficiency.
So sorry, I wasn't able to get any increased volume, so I'm going to go over that. For some reason, it didn't do that when I practiced at home. Well, what he's saying is that, first of all, there, let's see, I think I might have, yeah. All vitamins are complexes. There aren't vitamins by themselves. So for the most part, when we go to a store to get vitamin C, it is not the full vitamin C complex. It's usually ascorbic acid. That won't work. And we'll be going over that a little bit more in the future. But the important thing about this is that we have more calcium in our body than all the other minerals combined. But for the most part, that's a different type of calcium, and we think of it in terms of bones and teeth and that sort of thing. But ionized calcium, which is what comes from calcium bicarbonate, not calcium carbonate, which is also what seems to be the most common thing when you go to a store to buy calcium. Calcium carbonate can be changed into bicarbonate or an ionized form. Really, really difficult. The body really can't do it. It takes over 13 different changes to get to that point. But it's this particular form of calcium that is an ionized form that is what our immune system uses. And so you can think of it as being, one analogy I've heard is that having this present is like, this is how you call the police. So if you were in your home and somebody broke in and was starting to rob you, you'd want to call the police. You'd want some help. That's what the immune system needs in order to sort of call out the guards, to call out, what is needed. Then the vitamin C is what gives the police their strength so that now, they have their handcuffs or whatever they use. So those two are absolutely necessary just to get the immune system going, just to get it fired at 100%. So the other parts that were in what he talked about was that low carb and low sugar diets prevent infection. And that fever, he talked about polio because polio is also a virus. And all of these, as they advance in the body, of course, cause inflammation and then fever. So by having a fever, in order to have a fever, you have to have a lack of vitamin C complex and or a lack of this tissue type of calcium, this ionized calcium. Those are absolutely essential. Anyone that has a fever, that's the first thing you should go to. So they both help prevent infection entirely. So the vitamin C that we tend to use in our office is this cataplex C because it contains all of the parts of the C. I think I have a slide on that. Yeah. So this is what's involved with cataplex C. There are all of these factors. You can see ascorbic acid surrounding the outside. It is the thing that's in the biggest quantity, but it's not the thing that's in the that our body needs the most, or particularly for an immune response. That picture is a picture of Dr. Lee, by the way. Calcium lactate is an ionized form of calcium. It supports cell membranes and the ability for things to be able to permeate through the membrane. This is the kind of calcium that your immune system needs to have. Cataplex F is actually what your body uses to bring calcium from the blood into the tissue. So Cataplex F is something that Dr. Lee actually was the person that named it. This goes back to, I believe, the 1930s. So what's missing sometimes is that the calcium in the tissue isn't getting through, and vitamin F is what carries it through. It'll bring it in very readily into the cell. Let me just catch up here. So, natural viral immunity. There's actually two parts to this, and this is going to lead into one of the other supplements. Before we're done, I'll have a recipe for what I think people ought to do in various situations, but I want you to understand why. You know, what is it that's behind the recommendations that I'm making? So in a way, Mark Anderson is someone that has been involved with standard process products for over 40 years. This really came from him, used with permission. He's probably right now the person that is the most knowledgeable about how these foods that were put together to create these supplements work and why they were put together in the way that they are. So if you think of calcium and F and cataplex C as being sort of like the ammunition, you have to have the organs that, you know, we talked about that alliance of organs that are all involved with making an immune response. Well, we need those organs to make antibodies and to make phagocytes. Phagocytes are the types of cells within our immune system that actually eat invaders. So they gobble up virus in the talk that we're having today. And so Immuplex is designed to strengthen those organs within the immune alliance, and that allows the calcium and the cataplex C to work within the body the way it's supposed to. Those are things that really we should all be doing all the time. That's what creates the foundation for a strong immune response, to just be on guard for whatever. We don't ever know when we're walking into a room that's has more virus or more bacteria, or shaking somebody's hand, or, you know, whatever. And I include in my recommendations Cataplex D because particularly where we are here in northern Michigan, you know, the flu season is when we have the least amount of sunlight, and vitamin D is just an important part of being able to keep us responding the way that we're supposed to. So let's talk a little bit about Immuplex. Immuplex is the one I was talking about that supports all the organs within the immune alliance. So it makes them to be in their strongest form because we're relying on them to make these antigens. We need them to do their work. And so, you know, I'm sure that all of you have noticed that if you've been eating junk for a month or two and then all of a sudden you eat a nice big salad, that doesn't really quite do it, right? I mean, it takes more than just taking a pill right now. Each of us needs to sort of evaluate, well, what condition is my body in? What kind of strength can I depend on with the organs that I'm depending on with this fight? Or do I need help to make sure those organs are working the way they're supposed to too? This one is important that it's taken on an empty stomach, by the way. Zinc is an important part for those cells within those organs. Zinc is also the #1 deficient organ, the deficient mineral within our organs in the United States. The thing about zinc, it's really easy to test whether you need zinc or not. It's really common in our clinic. It's really, really common that people need zinc. It's just and you don't know it. It's not something that you see or feel going on. So I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about herbal remedies and their relationship to virus. There are a lot of different herbal combinations, herbal remedies that are used to help the immune system. I'm going to specifically be singling out ones that are either known to affect virus, known to particularly affect enveloped virus, because that's what we're dealing with right now. First, I want to introduce you to Professor Carrie Bone. Standard process a number of years ago added, it didn't used to, it added herbals to its armamentarium. And this is the man they worked with to develop the various complexes and remedies that they've come up with. He's quite a distinguished guy. And you can read things in here, things like contributing to over 100 articles in peer-reviewed journals, written or at least co-written 6 of the textbooks that are considered to be the textbooks. They're the ones that everybody goes to. This is the guy. He's from Australia, and this is the man that is looked to for several government agencies and for being the man that is the guy that you go to if you want to know anything at all about herbs. So the definition of a stealth pathogen, and this is right from Carrie Bone, is any pathogenic organism employing strategies that persist within our body. And they do it by hiding. Viruses are particularly good at hiding, by the way. Misdirecting. Sometimes they camouflage so that some of the cells in our body don't recognize them as being a virus. Evading. This is a common thing that happens with the virus of Epstein-Barr and some of the other ones here. Or suppressing, and that's more of a parasite that does that. But these are the things that lead to an immune response. They're the things that, if they're not caught, lead to chronic disease or at least a general lack of well-being. So first, let's talk about andrographis. And in the way that we use andrographis, it's a complex. And that's because Carrie Bone, in his research, has found that by combining particularly a certain form of echinacea, not all echinacea is the same. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Holy basil and andrographis, by combining them, you have something that is especially good for short-term immune support, especially good for acute immune challenge. So this is one of the ones that we would put into play right away if somebody has symptoms. So fever and influenza, mucus congestion, those kinds of things, this complex is something that's really especially helpful. So let's talk a little bit about echinacea, because I know that probably most of you have come across echinacea in one form or another. It goes way back. One way to know if you have a quality echinacea is that when you put it on your tongue, you should feel a tingling sensation. And that's an indicator of the good quality and that the active ingredient is really in there. So most echinacea on the market is the purpurea form rather than the augustifolia. It's a tongue twister. And you will see, when you see those different ones, you will see difference in cost because they're in shorter demand. It's harder to extract it. But the ones that we use usually combine the two. And some of them put more emphasis on the augustifolia form. So the one that we use comes in both a liquid and a tablet form. These are, this is the most echinacea available. And I'm not just saying that, but that's actually been tested. There are forms of echinacea that would take as much as 20 to 30 pills to equal the strength of one of these. There are none that come to less than 3, where 3 would equal 1, that were tested. I don't know that every echinacea in the world was tested, but the testing was done by the Australian government, and they did quite a long list of pretty well-known brands. So we feel pretty encouraged that this is something that's going to offer some, what we consider to be therapeutic strength. The purpurea form breaks down pretty quickly in the body, so it's hard for it to be a long lasting. What Kerry Bone found was that when he combined the two, he could get a long lasting effect within the body. So that's why they're combined in this product. Viranon, this is one that I'll go out on a limb and say, for what's going on now, this is critical. I feel that anyone that is a healthcare provider, anyone that is caring for another person, anyone that has been exposed, anyone that has a weaker immune system or just feels that they need some extra strength, this is the thing to be taking right now. It's a combination of things. You might be surprised to see that St. John's wort is in this combination because we think of that as something for depression, but St. John's wort has properties that specifically work on the envelope. They specifically work on the encapsulation of virus, and it breaks it down. So that's one of the things that we know about this virus, is that it is encapsulated. So if you can break down the capsule, your body can much more easily kill the virus before it can enter the cell. And that's what we're after. Once it enters the cell, it replicates. And that's how a virus starts to take over and make us sick, is that it keeps duplicating itself. So licorice is something that we know is particularly effective with viral problems in the respiratory system. So we know that this virus affects the lungs particularly. So this is one that I would say is a key one for us to keep our eye on. And and each of you can decide, with your own situation, what you feel is best for yourself. So. Okay, so let's talk about. Oh, there we go. The sooner you start, if you're going to use supplements, if you're somebody that's inclined to do that, the sooner you start, the better it is. What your body can do at the early stages to nip things in the bud is just way better than letting it sort of grow and then try to catch up. So this is being recorded, and I know that you all will have access to this, so I'm not going to go over all of these dosages and things like that, because you'll have access to it for your own use. But there is a list on the left which I would say, if you know you have symptoms, that's really the absolute minimum that you should be doing right away. I would rather see people do the middle column, that's comprehensive. And these are for people that are beginning to feel symptoms, that know that they're dealing with something. And then there's a list on the far right that is what you should do once you're better, what you need to do to gain the strength back in your tissues. So I know that some of you on the webinar tonight are patients of ours, and so of course we can be testing you specifically for these, but we're also all trying to keep social distancing, and so I tried to come up with what we can recommend by telephone or by this webinar, so that that there's something you can be doing. Then when this is over, we can test you to see what you still need to do or not. We can do a lot of help by phone too. So even along the way, we invite you to keep in touch with us and let us help guide you through it. Now, this is a list of things that I feel everybody should be doing. And I know everybody feels like, wait, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 things there. Well, I really tried to make this as minimum as I could, but these are the things that we really need. There's the triad of the Cataplex C, calcium lactate, Cataplex F. Congaplex and Immuplex are just known as the things that are like the basics for helping our immune system move through. And right now, Andrographis and Viranon are the things that are most specific for this particular type of virus, with as much as we know about it right now. So if you have questions about this, you can call us or email us, and we'll be glad to do what we can. This is a program for children. And again, this is a basic program, and it just kind of helps you to know what can be done for the little ones. If you're over 12, you really can use an adult dose. And again, if you need guidance on some of the acute situations, then just call us and we'll be glad to help in any way we can. For those that do have interest in this, we are observing every possible way that we can to protect our staff and to protect our patients that do come here. So for those of you that might want some supplements, we ask that you call in advance or you email us. We will get your supplements ready and ask for you to come and pick them up, or we can ship them to you. If you are symptomatic, and we are asking this of everybody, if you are symptomatic, we're asking you not to come into the office. Please ask someone else to pick up your supplements for you if you are symptomatic. If it's not possible, just let us know that, and we have a procedure in place for just that situation. We will find a way to get help to you without jeopardizing other people in the process. So this has been really something. Our major suppliers are having a really hard time keeping up with demand, and they're working overtime trying to do it. So there may be something that you want that at that particular moment is out of stock. Should that happen, we recommend that you start taking what is available. And if you place your order with us, we will hold that supplement for you, notify you as soon as it comes in. So that's the best that kind of procedures that we have come up with. We are not turning patients away, but we are asking that you be straight with us. We are asking everybody that has symptoms to stay at home, and we'll find a way to help you that way. So let's all work together on this. In summary, I just want to say a couple of things. With all the mixed messages on the media, really, this is potentially a really serious thing. If you look at the numbers in the other countries, and you look at the numbers day to day in the United States, even with the very limited testing that's being done, we're pretty much on track to be just like Italy. So I know that this is affecting everybody's financial situation. It's affecting everybody in that way. But personally, I'm not one to be willing to sacrifice life in order to bring economies back. We can catch up later. What's really important now is that we save lives. What's really important is that we reduce the severity that people will have and people will suffer. And I would love it if in a very short time we could say, that wasn't so bad. Look what we did as a group. We accomplished this. Having said that, I don't think it's going to be a short time. I think that we're still on the rise in this country, and it's going to be some time. And one of the things that I would like you to keep in mind, besides eating right, besides taking supplements that you feel will be appropriate in your case, it's really important to not dwell on what's bad about this, what's wrong in your life, what you aren't able to do, the ways you feel restricted. Happiness is also a very key part of the immune system. Being happy, being well. Let's understand that there really isn't anything we can do about this in terms of it being upon us. There's a lot we can do to help ourselves, help our families, help the country, help the world. So I want to invite us all to do that. So we have a couple minutes here, or I can take some questions if anybody has any questions. Wait here to see if something comes through in the chat box. Okay. I guess we're really good. So thanks everybody for participating in this. I hope that this was helpful for you. I'll be watching the situation. I'm considering doing a follow-up maybe in a week, depending on how things progress or what's happening in our country and in our localities. So stay tuned. Thanks a lot, everybody.